Hello, welcome back to our last session of the day here on our product stage. If you have not been with us before, my name is Kayla Schenider and I lead our enablement and solutioning teams here at Virtuous. Pleasure to have you all with us. And also a pleasure to be joined by my lovely colleague, Lisbeth Fernandez. Lisbeth, do you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Lisbeth, one of the solutions engineers on Kayla's team. That just means that I typically spend my day talking to nonprofits, learning about your processes and kind of all the great work that you're doing, and then showing them Virtuous. So really excited to be here today to talk about donor retention, right? Really important topic today.
100%. How do we retain those donors that you worked so hard to acquire, right? That is a big deal. And so Lisbeth is going to walk through the platform and talk through some of those different ways. If you have questions, you want to add comments, I would love to hear where you all are calling in from. Please put that all in the chat. And I'll be answering questions as they come in. I'll also pop them up to Lisbeth if it makes sense to kind of pause and have a conversation about that. Would love to make this interactive as well. So please add those questions in the chat. And without further ado, let's get in to Virtuous.
Yeah, so exactly. Good. Excited to talk about donor retention today. I actually did mention my background. Actually, I used to work in the world of nonprofits just like all of you, right? So I spent 16 years working on the more services kind of operational side. So I did things like oversaw things like donor relations, our stewardship program, oversaw our database and our gift processing team. So really excited to kind of be here because donor retention was really important topic at my nonprofits that I worked in. And we've been hearing a lot throughout the summit, right, about the overall industry, right? The data on donor retention is really showing that it's on the decline, right? So we want to be able to tackle that head on. Your current donors are really critical to the sustainability of your organization, right? Acquiring new donors is difficult, right? It's hard to find new people to give to your cause. It's also expensive, right? If you're doing any kind of like list purchasing or anything like that, it's usually a big investment that you're doing to acquire those new donors. So how do we make sure that we're continuing to cultivate and engage with our current donors, right? More than likely, your next major donor is already in your database, right? Not necessarily needing to look for that outside, but how can we better engage with those donors that we already have that relationship with, right? So really the key to that is building those relationships with that donor, right? The organization from the beginning, right? Not only having them being connected to your mission, but also having them feel emotionally connected and invested in your organization, right? Why should they be giving to you, right? So how can they do that, right? That can be really difficult to do. Like, again, I used to work at a nonprofit. We never had enough people or even good systems to be able to do that in an easy way. It was a pretty big lift for us to be able to do that kind of continual stewardship and cultivation. So let's actually hop into Virtuous so we can see how technology can actually help you do some of that relationship building at scale. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen here with all of you. And we're going to start off kind of in my favorite topic in Virtuous, which is our automations, right? I used to work in the nonprofit kind of world there. And when I first saw Virtuous here, that was my kind of where I fell in love with Virtuous, right? Like, how can we build those relationships at scale with all of our donors, right? Really giving donors that white glove experience, not just for our major donors, but for every single donor in your database, right? So kind of as we kind of just before we kind of hop into that kind of proactive approach to donor retention, right? We want to make sure that we're building those relationships right from the start and continually, not just when they're lapsed, not 20 years from now. We want to see if now they have capacity, we want to connect with them. We should be doing that relationship building throughout, right? So when you're thinking about automations in Virtuous, they're essentially workflows, right? Where you can do either internal type tasks, maybe just prompting staff members to reach out to donors, to review copy, to send out a grant application, or you could have more external tasks as well. So being able to engage with your donors. So being able to, thank them for making that gift, starting that relationship building from the start, right? So we have this idea of crawl, walk, and run in Virtuous. So as you're thinking about getting started in Virtuous and starting to build those relationships, you can take any of these best practice templates to help you get started, right? So things around birthday celebrations, being able to actually reach out to someone on their birthday, send them an email, wishing them a happy birthday, not at the beginning of the month or at the end of the month, when someone has time to pull a list, right? And you do everything at the same time, it can actually happen on their birthday. So they feel really special and seen by your organization. You can have, a lot of options here to get started. So things even around like event follow-up, right? Like when I used to work at a hospital that I worked in, we used to have a major gala, right? We were raising 7 figures with that gala, really important donors to our organization. But after that gala happened, we didn't do anything with that list, right? We weren't looking at who attended. Should any of our gift officers be following up? Does any of them have any giving capacity that we should be tapping into and maybe looking to see if we can do have them make it larger gift, right? So have the system do all that event follow-up for you, right? So they know that it was important that they went to that event, but also share some of the impact of the event, right? What were you able to do because of the money that you raised? How are you able to support your mission, right? Able to do even like new subscriber welcome series, right? As soon as even a non-donor hits your database as that new subscriber, start already engaging with them, building on that relationship, showing them exactly why they support your organization and why your organization is doing that important work, right? So the technology and the workflows can actually help you do that without you having to hire 20 people to actually start building some of those automations there. So a couple of different examples to kind of talk through today of how you can take a proactive approach when it comes to your donor retention, right? So instead of just you reaching out when they've lapsed, start that engagement at the beginning, right? So let's talk about that new donor welcome series. That's one of those templated examples that we just went through, right? So when you create one of those templates, it will create that that automation for you. Any kind of pieces that are contained in that template there will be automatically created for you. So I can see any tags that are here. I don't have to go out there and create it. It'll all happen for you. And then once you set this up the first time, right, you're only going to have to figure out like what is your flow, who should be kind of a part of that workflow, editing things like your content here. But this will only have to be done once, right, in the beginning. And then after that, your automation will run automatically kind of in the background for you. So the system will actually run queries to find, anybody who's a new donor, for example, here, and automatically enroll them here. So again, you're not having to run your own query or find your new donors, again, either at the beginning or the end of the month. This is all going to happen and run every single day. So that way donors are being, sorted on their timing, right? Not your timing. Kind of when you have time to do this, the donor will feel special and automatically as soon as they get that gift. So what is the workflow going to do here, right? We're going to go ahead and do some tagging within our workflow. So we're going to actually do segmentation. That's how we do segmentation in Virtuous with those tags, really allowing us to define who this donor is, how are they related to the organization, what kinds of things are they interested in. You can use tags to really define all that information and then use that information to create those personalized donor journeys, right? Maybe now I want to have a different kind of experience for those first-time donors after they complete that new donor welcome series. That tag will help me kind of do some of that. I could also add a tag of that new donor welcome series, right? So that identifies that they're a part of this workflow here. So that way, if I don't want to bombard my new donors with a lot of other communications or kind of protect them kind of in the beginning and protect what they're receiving, kind of what information they're receiving from me, I can add that tag to their record and easily exclude them from any other workflow or any other communication that I'm sending out. So really helpful because you can do all that kind of tagging and coding in the workflow. I'm also able to append that wealth data, right? So if you have new donors coming in, maybe they're making really small gifts, right? We have some donors that sometimes test our organizations to see what kind of stewardship, what kind of impact we have. So maybe they're making a very small gift first, right? Maybe like a $15, $20 gift, $50 gift. But they have much more capacity to give a lot more. So appending that wealth data right here will give you that insight and then allow you to actually work with that donor and maybe see if they have an interest in making that major gift, right? These workflows are all multi-channel, so you can communicate with donors in all different kinds of ways, right? You can send out emails directly from here, and these emails are all using our fully integrated marketing platform, right? So Virtuous is much more than a CRM. We have a full marketing suite of tools that includes email builders. We have integrated forms, including giving forms, and a full kind of robust giving platform. So we have full SMS in here as well. So a lot of those are all kind of available through our automations here for you to create that multi-channel experience, right? So you can have that email going out to that donor, really making that connection immediately, not only thanking them, but again, educating them on your organization, right? Why are they giving? Why is it important to give to you? So they can become then have that emotional investment in the work that you're doing. Also able to do some SMS texting through here as well. So you can actually create that template and have that going out to the donor from here. You also have the ability to add tasks here as well to actually prompt other staff members to actually reach out to the new donor, right? So it can be a combination of those more automated type touch points, but also those one-to-one touch points here as well. So again, you're not waiting on your operations team or your DBA to run a list for you. I know that in my nonprofit, my waiting time or period for any list request was 7 business days, right? So it would take 7 business days if you requested a list of new donors in your portfolio or to a certain program. The system can actually do all that for you automatically and just prompt you with the task, right? No need to actually live in those spreadsheets. We also have a service that allows you to actually create templates through here and send out postcards and letters through here as well. So again, that full multi-channel experience. And then once that donor maybe goes through that first kind of experience, again, you can make that journey as long as you like. You can have multiple emails flowing through there, multiple text messages, making it really robust. But after they've learned a little bit about your organization and the impact, maybe now you want to move them into an ask, right? Maybe ask them to become a recurring donor, a more sustaining donor to your organization so that they can then support that on a more regular basis to ensure that you can continue doing that work that you're doing. And then lastly, my favorite column, right? I used to be on the kind of operational side, kind of that DBA side. So being able to actually remove the tag of first-time donor as soon as that donor makes that second gift, right? So that way they're not getting that improper or inappropriate asking them for that second donation when they already made them, right? Made it, right? So that just makes you look bad. It makes it look like you're not paying attention. You don't know who your donors are, but the system can actually do all that work for you. So that way I'm not needing to do that when I come in. And the next day, maybe I'm on vacation for 2 weeks and it takes 2 weeks for someone to update their record. So you have that kind of that chance of kind of that happening, right? So creating that kind of personalized and white glove experience for your donors will really help with that donor retention because they start that connection with you right from the beginning, right? A couple other examples of some really great, I think, proactive type of donor retention type workflows is one around donor loyalty, right? Again, something that we always struggle to do at the nonprofit that I worked in, right? Being able to actually know when donors are giving consecutively, right? So in this case, right, I want to look for donors that have given multiple years in a row and create a different experience for them. Again, being able to connect with them and explain to them, show them why it's important that they're giving. But again, that regular communication continues to build trust in your organization and continues to build that relationship, right? So in this case, I can build a query, look for any of my loyal donors that have given 2 years in a row, send them, an email, thanking them for being a loyal donor for 2 years. Again, that email can be very crafted to include that kind of language so that they know that you're speaking to them. You could also tag them with that loyal to donor there, right? They've given 2 years in a row. So doing all that tagging and segmentation for you as well in the actual workflow, right? So you can create a different experience for your 3-year donors, right? Maybe that email is going to speak a little bit differently to them, right? Maybe now they've already been giving 3 years in a row. They're a little bit more invested in the organization. They support your mission. Maybe you want to ask them to increase their giving again or become a recurring donor, right? You've already given 3 years in a row. Why don't you make your giving a lot more consistent by becoming a recurring or a monthly donor, right? So you can craft that different language and experience for them because you're able to build all that out here in the workflow. And then what about if you're reactivated donors, right? That's always the one that's really hard to make sure that you're stewarding to find, right? What about if you had donors that were giving to you before and then they stopped and now are giving to you again, right? Again, you want to be able to connect with them immediately as soon as they make that gift, as soon as that they're reactivated, right? Send them a text, right, to connect with them and do some of that that engagement, right? Maybe send them a postcard, right? Showing them that they're, that they've reactivated, really showing how grateful you are that they've recommitted to your mission. And again, just sharing some of that impact. So a lot of ways that you can do some of that engagement here, and kind of building that relationship. If you kind of look at this entire workflow, there's no human involved in it, right? There's no one actually needing to make a phone call. No one's having to pull a list. No one's having to push this information out to anybody. It's all kind of happening in the workflow here as well. What other examples, right? So we can even do like a birthday when I mentioned you kind of one of those templates around that birthday celebration, right? So you can have a totally different kind of experience around the birthdays, right? So maybe I want to have kind of one general step here at the end, right? That birthday's today, where kind of anyone in my system will receive an email kind of celebrating your birthday, right? Or maybe even a text, right? That goes out and probably just to say happy birthday there, but a text that goes out and says happy birthday, right? But maybe I have some donors that are actually assigned, right, to certain gift officers or certain fundraisers in the organization. And they don't necessarily want that generic email going out, but they want to be able to themselves have their own kind of process for how those birthdays are kind of celebrated, right? So for Kayla here, she's going to want a postcard kind of being sent. It can have her information on that postcard, so that they know who to reach out to, and kind of just wishing that person a happy birthday kind of in that portfolio. So that query can isolate that information and create that unique experience for Kayla's portfolio. Maybe for my portfolio here, I don't mind that email. I'm good with kind of an email going to my portfolio members, but actually I want it to be addressed from me, right? I want it to come from me, sharing my my best wishes for their birthday, and even allowing that email to reply back to me. So if I wanted them to actually reply and communicate with me via that email, that automated email can also do that for you as well. So again, really allowing you to make your donors feel special on their birthdays. Again, they're not getting that email or that card or kind of that message in the beginning or the end of the month, but really on their birthday. And again, no one's really needing to be involved if you don't necessarily want to do that. Let's see, and then maybe around like your portfolio management, right? So again, if you're thinking about those that are assigned, how can you make sure that you're being responsive with your donors, right? Making sure that donors in your caseload are continuing to give, are continuing to be engaged, right? So you could also create similar types of automations around your portfolio, right? So even thinking about as contacts are being added to my portfolio, I can fully automate that entire process as well, right? I can build a query, really define what is that profile of who needs to be assigned in my portfolio. Am I looking at donors, right? Donors that have given over a certain amount, donors that gave last year. I can pull in that kind of information into my portfolio here. I also can pull in wealth data, right? I can append it either here in the workflow, or once it's already appended, I can actually use any of that data, right, to actually create that profile. Maybe I want donors that have a certain giving capacity, or donors that have a certain likelihood score, for annual fund, or for major giving, or for planned giving. Or you get a full screening there when it comes to that donor search integration, and you can leverage that information to kind of create that profile of who should be assigned in this portfolio. But then I can, right in here, add it to Lisbeth's portfolio, and I can even add a task to myself, right? That a brand new process has been assigned. I need to either make a phone call, reach out to them via email, make some kind of personalized communication out to this donor here, right? So that way, again, there's no lag in there. That relationship building is starting right from the beginning. So that way, there's no delay in that gift officer knowing, and they can actually reach out immediately, right? What's great about these tasks here is that not only can you obviously query on them to create a list, but those tasks can also be visible on the dashboard, right? So when I log into Virtuous, I'll have a dashboard. All those tasks will be pushed into that dashboard for me. So I know immediately who I need to reach out to. Do I need to make a phone call today? Do I need to call a donor? Without, again, anyone having to pull a list of my actions or my tasks that are due today and actually provide that to me, right? So it can all happen instantly. It'll even email me when that task is assigned, or even when it's due. So I don't necessarily even have to be in Virtuous every single day. If I'm out and about meeting with donors, I'll get that email so I know, oh, I have a brand new prospect in my portfolio. I need to make sure that I plan to reach out to them, right? It can also even update things like custom fields in your system. So if you're tracking, prospect status, For example, as one of those custom fields, you could also have that kind of information updated automatically as soon as it moves into my portfolio. So allowing you to be much more responsive with your donors without, again, having to create a significant amount of work for your team there. All right, so now let's kind of move into the other side of the equation, right? So that's kind of some ideas of what you can do to be proactive when it comes to donors before they lapse, right? Really building that engagement from the beginning to really help prevent any of those kind of lapsing issues, right? But then once they do lapse, you want to be able to see that, right? So I'm going to move into our contact record first to kind of show you some of that information. But essentially, you're going to have records for all your donors, right? And even non-donors, right? You can have all kinds of records in Virtuous, especially with those tags. That makes it easy for you to segment, so you know who's a donor, who's a non-donor. You can track all that information here. But essentially, you're going to have really robust records here, right? So you can track a lot of information in this record here. Right at the top, though, really easily, I can see who this donor is, their contact information. I can see information around their giving. I can see their financial and social scores. Those are additional data insights that Virtuous is actually providing for you as well. That also will allow you to create a much more kind of personalized ask when it comes to your donors, right? You kind of know a little bit about them, so you can speak a little bit more personally to them. That also allows you to continue to increase your retention, right? So thinking about that financial score, right? Virtuous is going to actually be providing that financial score for every single record in the system, and it's based on giving directly to your organization, right? So it's looking at what we call RFM, right? So how recently a donor has given, the frequency of their giving, and the amount of their giving, right? So all that information together will inform that financial score. So when you're with this kind of looking at this record here, or maybe even in your dashboard, you can see who are those donors that have a high financial score and maybe are ready for that next financial ask, right? So you have that information automatically being added by Virtuous. But then you also have this idea here of a social score, right? I love that social score because in Virtuous, we do think that generosity is much more than just that financial ask. So even thinking about donor retention, it shouldn't just be donor retention. It's really about engagement, right? So maybe this year the donor doesn't have, the financial means or is not prepared to kind of make a financial gift, but they can still engage with you in other ways and connect with you in other ways, right? So we will provide that social score as well for every record in the system. That's a combination of a couple different data points, right? So first, we're looking at what we call social insights data. So if we have someone's email address, we can actually scrape the web to find what that public social media presence looks like, right? Do they have, do they have a profile in LinkedIn? Do they have a profile in Twitter or X, right? Whichever way we're calling it nowadays, right? But essentially looking for that social capital, right? But then we're also going to look at information that's in this record right here, right? So if we look down, if I scroll down to the record, I can see the relationships, right? Relationships. That's everybody that this record's connected to, right? Do they have a lot of relationships kind of through this relationships tab here? Are they really connected, right? Looking for those that have that network, right? And then we're also going to be looking at the proximity of where they live, right? So if you can see right here, in my little fake database here, they have 0 donors within 100 miles. So maybe they live close to like 100 of your donors, right? Looking at that social density of where they're living, again, to find who has that kind of capital and kind of that network there, right? So all those 3 data points will inform that social score. So maybe Justin and Melissa Harrison, they do have a high financial score, but they also have a really high social score, right? Maybe instead of asking them for that financial gift this year, maybe you ask them to promote one of your upcoming events on their Instagram page or on their Twitter page, or maybe they can even just host a dinner at their home, right? Open up their network to you and kind of invite other friends of theirs or other colleagues to learn more about your organization. But again, that's just a different way of engaging with that donor. It continues to deepen that relationship with them. It continues to have them be much more emotionally invested in your organization because they feel much more engaged. So it's not just about that financial kind of perspective. It's also about that social perspective as well. So a couple things on the record here to kind of highlight, and we're talking about that kind of donor retention here. So really important, obviously, to have accurate information for your donors. I know yesterday we talked about how you could kind of clean up your data with Virtuous and kind of how you can do some of that. But essentially, you want to be able to track all their contact information. You want it to be correct, right? So you can track here, again, multiple addresses for them, including maybe they have a summer home, right? I want to be able to track what days are they at their primary home and what day are they at their summer home, right? So you can do that tracking all throughout Virtuous here. You also can track all their individual contact methods as well. So in Virtuous, we do have kind of this householding structure here. We have three main contact types: our organizations, our foundations, and then our households. So then our households, you'll have that information kind of living, you have some information living at that contact level. So you'll have a record here for Justin and Melissa Harrison, where you're going to track that address, right? That address would be kind of at that contact level. But then for your individuals, right, with their own ID numbers, I can track all their contact methods, right? Their phone numbers, their emails. Do they have a Twitter account? Do they have a LinkedIn account? I can track all that information here. So that way, again, you're not going to lose contact with that donor. That's probably the easiest way, right, to get a lapsed donor or someone to stop giving, is I have no idea where they are. I have no way of contacting them. So being able to have that information all housed here in Virtuous to make it easy for you to not lose that contact. And then we talked about those tags, right? Those tags, you saw them in that workflow, right? We're tagging people as first-time donors as being part of that workflow. But tagging is really where you're going to be doing all grouping and segmentation in Virtuous, right? Being able to track, what kind of donor are they? What is their constituency? How are they related to the organization? Do they have any kind of interest, right? Those interests are really important because you can speak to them more personally, right? Again, if they're just kind of getting some spray and pray type of approach where they're getting just mass emails, they don't feel personally connected to the messaging that you're sending out. Again, a pretty quick way of losing a donor, right? So if you can actually track their information and know a little bit about who they are and why they're connected to you and why they're giving, you can create those personalized donor journeys in Virtuous to create that kind of more personal connection, and they're with you as well. But then you're seeing here this lapsed donor tag, right? A long way to kind of get to this lapsed donor tag. Essentially, when your donors do lapse, the system will automatically tag their records with this lapse tag here, lapsed donor tag. So what that means is they haven't given to your organization for 13 months, or maybe they haven't, they're past due on one of their recurring gifts, or they could be past due on one of their pledges as well. So any of those options there will automatically, move someone or kind of tag someone with that lapsed donor tag here. So again, you're not having a query on who they are, try to identify them, pulling LiveBunt reports and things like that. Again, you can pull those if you wanted to using our query tools. We even have some best practice queries already set up to pull LiveBunt information. But all those donors that are going to be lapsing are automatically going to be tagged for you. Also, we have a pre-lapse system tag as well. So as donors haven't given in 6 months, we'll also tag them with that pre-lapse tag. So again, you can kind of get ahead of the game and maybe prevent them from lapsing. But really easy, even if I wanted to just see who was lapsed in my system, if I click on this tag here, it'll actually automatically pull a list of everybody who's lapsed, right? So the first way of kind of approaching, your lapse population there is to know who's actually been lapsed, right? So again, you're going to have that automatically happening, and then you can easily pull a list by you're clicking into a tag. You can pull queries to see that. They'll even bubble up for you on your dashboard. So if you're on your dashboard, it's a whole kind of area on best calls to make. It'll pull in any of your lapsed and pre-lapsed donors as well. So really allowing you to kind of get ahead of it, right? So you want to be proactive, but once they lapse, you don't want to necessarily wait till they're deeply lapsed or they've been lapsed for 5 years. You want to be able to kind of move them into a lapsed kind of donor re-engagement series there. So that's actually exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to kind of show you what you could do, right, once they're actually lapsed, right, in the system kind of through our workflows. But those system tags there, again, they're automatic. You can create your own tags. So if you had, a different definition of who's lapsed and who you wanted to be reaching out to, you can create your own tags and your own kind of definitions, your own queries, and even use the same kind of automation workflow to do that tagging for you, right? But for our example, we're going to just use our system tags here. So you can create a whole lapsed donor retention kind of re-engagement series here. So in my example here, this is kind of one that I built completely from scratch, right? So with these workflows, as we mentioned, you have those templates. You can create kind of starting with one of those templates, can kind of just start with one of those. You also can edit any of those as well. So even that new donor welcome series we started talking about in the beginning, you could modify that if you wanted to have a different kind of experience for your donors that were under 1,000 and those that were over 1,000. And then you can build your own workflows as well. So like this is an example of one that was created from scratch using those system labs tags, right? So in my example here, I wanted to be able to have a different experience for my annual fund donors than my major donors that are lapsed, right? Because probably my major donors are either assigned to a gift officer, or I want to have just a different kind of messaging for them when I interact with them, right? They've already made one of those large gifts and investments to your organization. So for my lapsed donors here, maybe when they're lapsed, first thing I can do is actually send a postcard out directly to them, right? I can send out a postcard showing them that we missed you. If I click into this here, should open up that template. So through our kind of letters on demand, you could also do letters. So you could do postcards or letters through here. Again, you can, when you're setting it up, you would name that. You can select from a template or kind of just create, kind of start brand new. And then you'd be able to create kind of a postcard, right? You can design what that postcard looks like. I created a pretty simple one because I'm certainly not a graphic designer or have any kind of skill set in that way. So mine just says, "We miss you," right? Like something that again catches their attention, allows them to kind of know right when they see that that's coming from you, and it's something that that you're missing them, right? But then kind of in that background here, you can also design the back part of that postcard. Again, I got really creative there. Again, we miss you again. But you can merge in information from their record into any of these here, right? So you can merge in things like their contact information, things like their life-to-date giving, right? Their most recent gift. You can merge in their contact information as well. So again, you can create a more kind of personalized experience for them. So in my example, I'm actually pulling in their first name, last name. I could also say things like dear first name, for example. And then I'm pulling in, thank you for your most recent gift of on a certain date, right? So I can pull in that last gift date and I can pull in that last gift amount as well. And then again, you can customize what that messaging is, and then even include, a link to your giving page, but also include a QR code, right? It can be a QR code directly to your giving page. So if they have it sitting on their desk, right, they can just scan with their phone and actually do some of that customization there, right? So again, for me, I know some people believe that mailing is direct mail is dead and people don't really like mailing, but for me, I get 1,000 emails, right, every single day. I don't open every single email. They kind of just sit in my inbox. But if I get a letter or something, a postcard in the mail, I'm going to grab that postcard. I'm going to put it on my desk, right? Oh, I've been meaning to give to them again, right? But instead of me forgetting about that email that I saw this morning after I read, on my work email, as I, talk to my husband and kind of everything kind of just flows out of my mind, that postcard will still be on their desk, right? So a constant kind of reminder to really allow you to, again, maybe recapture some of that with an easy way of them giving, right? So if I go ahead and preview that, so you can kind of see that experience. Let's see. Yeah, so you can, when you're previewing it there, you'll be able to actually see again what that front of that card looks like, the back of that card, right? You can make sure that your information is in there. It'll merge in their contact information. But essentially, this service not only allows you to design that, merge that information in, but it will actually print it and mail it for you. So again, completely hands-off experience when it comes to that lapsed donor. So when you're thinking about that kind of lapsed re-engagement donor, that poster can be really helpful, again, because it's a little bit of that constant reminder. People aren't always getting things in the mail, right? So it's kind of nice to receive that postcard in the mail as well. So again, maybe for my annual fund donors, I want that postcard going out, and then I want a series of emails, right? Really talking to them about being lapsed, again, urging, maybe including some real good call to action language in there, re-encouraging them to give again. You could even have those text messages going out there, right? So it can be fully kind of multi-channel experience for those annual fund donors, right? Maybe for my major donors, I want to have a totally different experience, right? Maybe I have a similar postcard going out, or you can kind of tweak the language of that postcard. But I also want to prompt someone, one of my gift officers, who's actually my major gift officer, to send out a personalized email, right? I want it to come directly from them. I want them to kind of merge in any information that they know about them, about their family or anything. So creating that more kind of one-to-one touch for your major donors. But then again, you could add in things like that text message, right? You can add in even things like a follow-up call, right? So maybe I already sent the email, the postcard went out, we had that text go out. Now I'm going to make a phone call just to see if they received that kind of after that series there, right? Maybe those touch points may encourage them to actually answer the phone when you make that phone call, right? So you can actually merge in, again, those more automated touch points with those more one-to-one touch points here. But really, as soon as they lapse, they can automatically be enrolled into this workflow. So you're actually kind of tackling that problem head on. And again, you're not waiting until we used to run our light button year at the end of the year, right? In December, it was end of year. People tend to give more at the end of the year. We would only do a live button campaign at the hospital that I worked in at the end of year, right? By then, they've already been lapsed for a year in some cases, right? So you could actually create that engagement and that kind of re-engagement series as soon as that information is added without you even having to tag them as lapsed. The system can do all that for you. So really helpful when it comes to thinking about your lapsed donors and being able to use the system to do a lot of that re-engagement for you without, again, having to hire a lot of people. Like, I think we all know what we need to do, right? We all know that it's good to cultivate donors. We know that it's good to engage with donors, and we know it's good to steward our donors, but we don't necessarily have the time or the systems to be able to do that. So let the system help you a little bit, right? Help you create that engagement and then hopefully continue to strengthen what your mission is, right? So lastly, kind of the last area I wanted to talk through is our BI, our Virtuous BI side of the house, right? So this is really where you're going to get that insights into that data, right? So now you've been doing all this work, right? You've been being proactive with your donors. You've been engaging with them. You have your re-engagement series, but then I need to know, like, what is my retention, right? Like, how are we doing? What does that information look like, right? So we do have our Virtuous BI side of the house here, which is essentially where you have those data insights. You have visualizations of all your data. And what I love about Virtuous BI, right? So I used to actually create BI reports at the hospital that I worked in. And it took a long time, right? I used to have to know how to code SQL. I taught myself SQL, so I had to constantly be Googling, right, how to SQL this and how to do this. So the system, right, in Virtuous, you don't have to know how to write SQL, right? Not only is it really easy to create reports, but you already will have 11 best practice reports that are available here, right? So again, you're going to have a lot of insight into your data from the first day that you have BI in your system. So an example of that one is a donor retention overview, right? So we're talking about donor retention. And if you're setting up all those workflows, this information will be available as soon as you have that BI, right? So as soon as I go into my donor retention overview, I already know what my donor retention rate is, right? I don't have to pull a query, analyze things in Excel, or kind of figure out what is that. That information will already be for you here, right? So there's a lot more data that you probably even know you wanted in all these workbooks here, right? So I can see, my donor retention across by month, right? Across the last 2 years. You can filter out the dates if I wanted to see different dates here really easily. I can even have insight as to my new donors. What are they giving by month? So if I have new donors I gave in July of 2022, how many of them made a second gift, right? You can see that column here in the blue. How many of them actually made a third gift? So seeing that retention across kind of when you're acquiring those donors, right? Maybe I already know that in November, I have a pretty good Giving Tuesday campaign, and maybe that's when I acquire a lot of donors, right? Well, this will actually let you know whether that's true or not, right? You can see that insight right from here. I can see my retention across all the different channels, right? So, maybe I have a lot of different kind of ways that we're fundraising, right? We're doing events, we're doing peer-to-peer, we're doing, email campaigns, direct mail. Which one's actually making donors stick around, right? Which is actually leading to more of that retention of second gift, right? Like in my example here, I can see that my event donors tend to always get that second gift, right? So again, really easy for you to get that insight without you having to create all this data yourself to get that information. You can right here not only get those insights, but I can see information around my live buttons information as well. So I can also filter down any of this area, right? Maybe I want to see just live buttons in my portfolio, right? I don't necessarily want to see every single one in the entire system. I only want to see those in my group, my caseload, right? I want to be able to reach out to them, have that insight right here on that dashboard. But a lot of information here, right, as well. You can see, how many live contacts in total, right? This is filtered down to my portfolio here. I can also then see the list of who are those live contacts, right? I can see information around their, how many days has been since their most recent gift. What is their total lifetime giving? What was their first gift amount, right? So all that information is already baked in here so that you can easily get all that insight, even your deeply lapsed donors as well, like your side buns, right? They've given some year, but not, unfortunately, not this year, right? Again, really easy for you to do that through our BI. You can easily modify any of these reports too. So if I wanted to see different data, maybe I want to see retention, across a certain project, right? Maybe for my annual fund only or my restricted fund. I can go ahead and hit save as here, and I can go ahead and modify that report. I can also build reports from scratch as well. If I wanted to create brand new reports, looking at different kinds of data, I can also do that here. And any of these dashboards here, they can also be scheduled, right? So if you wanted to, share your donor retention overview with your entire team, again, full transparency so everyone knows, kind of where you are in that process, kind of setting that maybe as one of your organization goals, right? So everyone's kind of working towards that. Everyone's kind of involved in donor retention, not just fundraisers, right? It's based on our systems, our data, kind of all our marketing, our communications, kind of everyone's involved when it comes to donor retention. So here you can share that across the team. They can all come in here and see that, but you could also push that out, via scheduled reports. You can also schedule it to non-users as well. So if you wanted to share that donor retention with your board, I know that was something I always had to report on at the board meeting when I went to. You could actually just have that pushed out directly to your board member. So again, really easy way for you to get really robust information and metrics so that you know how you're doing. And then you can tweak your processes and tweak your workflows based on whether or not that donor retention is ticking up or down, right? So really love talking about both automations and BI, my two favorite parts at Virtuous. So hopefully that was helpful for all of you. And just learning a little bit more about how you can utilize Virtuous to really help improve your donor retention there.
Love it. Thank you so much, Lisbeth. I honestly, as you were talking, I'm thinking these are all the reasons. Like I just would think about automation and all the things and think, man, just like all the things of if we only could, if we could do these things, if we could do that, wouldn't it be awesome if blah, 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 and having the ability to have a tech that works with us and also having, giving us time to be able to do those things is incredible. We had one really great question about what's the difference between Virtuous BI, our Virtuous reports, queries, like what are they all for? What is the concept of all of them? And I would say, from my perspective, they each have their own purposes, right? They're each there for different reasons. And so query is really meant for us to be able to group things together and then to be able to power other options, right? So I either want to get a list of people or a list of gifts, those types of things. But then I want to maybe power an email or power a automation. I want to, do something with that data in a way of like automatically assigning, people into a workflow or those types of things, right? Being able to use and kind of use that data. Virtuous reports that are inside of Virtuous, those are reports that we have built that are best practice reports, but you don't have the flexibility in making them your own. You get to choose what the parameters are, but you really don't get to choose the look and the feel. And it's kind of standard in that sense, because that's what, 90% of people need to see, or it might look different than you normally have, but you can find the data pieces that you need within those different types of reports. Then BI itself is really just a completely flexible reporting tool that gives you the ability to create beautifully branded reports, exactly what you're looking for. You want 7 metrics on one sheet that are completely different? No problem. You don't have to have it in 7 different reports. Let's add it to one place so you have that one thing to look at. And so I'm actually going to be demoing BI tomorrow if you have more questions about that. But I'll be going through that and getting a real deeper look into how that works for our customers there. So I hope that answered your question, Cassie. Thanks for sending that in. Thank you all for your questions and things throughout the chat. Thank you, Lisbeth, for providing us with such great information about what that can look like here. this is the last session of today. There is a little kind of recap. You can hop over and join. But tomorrow is the last day of RNS 2024. I am so sad. This is my favorite time of the year. I love RNS so much, being able to have a free virtual conference that people can come to at any time. That's really, well, obviously our sessions are focused on Virtuous, but the rest of it is really like what's happened in the industry. I think it's so important. And so please come back tomorrow. There's so much good work tomorrow. Randy, tomorrow, the demo of that is the second session of so there's the keynote, which is 8. I'm Pacific time, y'all. Sorry, I'm talking Pacific
Depends on the time zone, right?
8 a.m., 9. So it's going to be 10 a.m. Pacific time is when the BI session is tomorrow. But we would love to see you again there tomorrow. If not our stage, please come back and see something else. There's going to be so many more great opportunities for that. So great to have you all today. And we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for coming. Bye, y'all.
Everybody.